All Elite Wrestling has just held its fourth Blood and Guts match, and in honor of that, I have decided to go back and watch every single Blood and Guts match. Let's find out how they stack up. The scoring is going to be real simple here. What we're going to do is I'm going to give each Blood and Guts match 1 point every time something awesome happens, and we're going to subtract a point anytime anything not so awesome happens. Let's go ahead and start with the first Blood and Guts match, and that was held in 2021. They were originally going to do a Blood and Guts match in 2020. However, we had this huge pandemic and wrestling got shut down. Now, just right off the top, and I'm not going to subtract any points for this, this Blood and Guts was held kind of in semi-quarantine at Daly's place in Florida. I don't think it actually subtracts anything from it or adds anything to it. It's just kind of an interesting little footnote. There's less people in attendance, and the stage setup is a little awkward, a little different. Our teams are going to be the Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle, with the Pinnacle being kind of the heel faction led by MJF, and the Inner Circle here being led by Jericho. That would be your good guys. One of the first big moments in this is when Dax gets busted open the hard way. I think everybody else is blading, but Dax gets busted open on the steel cage. That was pretty exciting. Dax tries to pin Sammy. There's no pinfall. I'm subtracting a point because it was just silly. I know it's the first time they've ever done this in AEW, but I don't think we needed to hammer that point that hard. It got a little redundant. There was a cool spot with Sammy Guevara where Sammy and Sean Spears did a Spanish fly from like the middle of the ring, and Ortiz had probably the best run in out of the first half of this. He comes in as the real chairman. He's got a chair and he's throwing chairs and he's choking people out with chairs, and there's chairs everywhere. What is less awesome is Sammy Guevara just eating shit off the ropes. I don't know what the fuck he was going for or why, but he just wipes out entirely. We got to dock a point for that. Got to give another point to Jake Hager for coming in here as a House of Fire. This was my favorite one. Now, Ortiz was really cool throwing around chairs. Jake Hager was throwing around boots. Also violent was people just chucking Sammy Guevara into the fucking cage. We get a coast to coast from Sammy Guevara. Pretty damn well executed. Give it a point. Shit gets taken to the next level when people start dismantling the ring. So we got that here from FTR. I thought that was a cool moment. So going into this, the only part of this match that I could remember was the ending. The ending was blown up way out of proportion all over the internet. It was a black eye for AEW, because the way they do this is really obvious that Jericho falls onto a crash pad. Now, I don't want Jericho to die. Nobody wants a wrestler to get injured. Well, the internet wants wrestlers to get injured, apparently, because they were pissed off that it didn't look good. Okay. Now I got a minus. This is a minus point. Although this match did a lot better than I thought it was going to do. We were on stream a day before I started doing this, and we were talking about which one of these matches were going to be the best, which ones were going to be the worst, and everybody agreed that this probably was the worst Blood and Guts match, because this ending just left a real bad taste in your mouth and kind of negates all the cool shit that happened before the ending. They fuck around for what seems like forever on top of the cage. Jericho putting MJF in the walls of Jericho, and then MJF putting Jericho in the arm bar, and no one's submitting, and MJF's getting frustrated, and he tells the guys inside the cage, hey, I'm gonna fucking kill Jericho if you guys don't give up. And the guys in the cage, they give up, but he throws them off the cage anyways. And now I think what really hurts this is that commentary is drilling all during the match. Oh, it's concrete on the outside. And you're like, something's up. And he throws them off the cage, and it's clearly cardboard and crash pads, guys. It's clearly, and there's no reason. The reason why I wouldn't take a point off of this, but it's just, there's no fucking reason to show it like this. There's no reason to keep cutting to it, to showing bad angles. that was just needless. It was pointless to show it like that. There was a camera angle to show this from. There's a few camera angles you could have used to show this from that would have not have exposed the gimmick. It wouldn't have shown the crash pad as much. It wouldn't have shown that there was a cardboard on top of it. But they just kept showing the bad angle over and over and over again, and it just kind of killed the whole thing. Oftentimes people talk about no selling, killing the suspension of disbelief. Look, showing the fucking crash pad and cardboard over and over and over again, that's what kills the suspension of disbelief for me, okay, guys? Blood and Guts 2022, where we have the Jericho Appreciation Society versus the newly formed Blackpool Combat Club. And the first thing I gotta do is give this thing a -1, because for the first whole segment and most of the second segment of this match, nothing really happens. The one highlight in the first half of this are the coordinated outfits from the Jericho Appreciation Society. That's a great look. Everybody in the red, the shiny pants with the mesh tops and the hats. Sharp look on the Jericho Appreciation Society. In the previous year, we didn't have anybody who felt like a minor player in the match. Everybody felt like they had impact when they entered the cage. Angelo Parker had very little impact when he came to the cage. Starts running away from everybody. I mean, it's cool. It's different, right? But it really made the teams feel lopsided. Now Yuta, when Yuta enters, shit pops off with a lot of suplexes, leading up to a really cool spot where he suplexes, and while he's doing the suplex, Claudio comes and delivers a European uppercut, and that was really cool. It seems like this year, every time something good happens, something bad happens, something bad happens, something good happens. Well, if something bad happens, Santana injures his knee, and that's really bad. I gotta minus a point on the match because it takes Santana out of action for like ever. Santana never recovers from this in AEW. This sucks. And he does this Uranagi and he hurts his knee, and then you just don't see him again. And that just really, really sucks. God knows the match probably would have been a lot better had that not happened. Real bummer there. On the upside, there's a really cool spot that I didn't remember. I only caught it this time. It kind of like blink if you miss it. Yuta is trying to eat Sammy's face. As Yuta tries to eat Sammy's face, Angelo Parker comes up behind Yuta and tries to just dig his whole hands into Yuta's face. It's a really violent spot, and just overall, the violence of this match, this is more violent than the previous year. It's very intense. It's extremely violent. There's more blood. It's absolutely crazy, absolutely nuts, and it definitely gets an extra point for violence and thumbtacks. There's so many goddamn thumbtacks. There's like 3 bags of thumbtacks. There's 2 rings put together. One of the rings is entirely thumbtacks, and it causes all kinds of problems. Holy shit, I've never seen anybody dump out that many thumbtacks in like mainstream wrestling. This is the Blood and Guts, where you got the Giant swing on top of the cage. Claudio gets up there and Giant swings Jericho. That's a +1. Not only that, but before that happens, and I forgot this one, they get the throw from the top of the cage right. Eddie throws Sammy off the top of the cage, and it looks wonderful. This is what it should have been the year before. This was brilliant. I think they learned from their mistakes. That spot was executed flawlessly. And then finally, the match does end with Blackpool Combat Club being victorious. And I'm giving it another +1 because I just really like the vibe at the end of this. I like how they had some time at the end, maybe because Santana got injured, I don't know. But they had a lot of time up at the top of the cage. You got all the Blackpool Combat Club guys on the top of the cage just like talking to each other and helping each other up and everything. Just really cool vibe. I really liked it. It was a cool way for it to end. I give that a +1. This year, everybody gets their own entrance, and it's a surprise who is going to be coming out next. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And one of the entrants here is also going to be Pac. And Pac hasn't entered the ring in like months, as this is like the first in-ring competition for Pac in a while. So that one's cool. Another point for this is you got Kenny Omega right from the start. The first entrant into this match, well, technically the second, you got Claudio and Omega. And this just is great because you get this awesome Claudio Omega match to start. It's not slow at all. It's just like a solid wrestling match to start this thing before Pac comes out. Overall, everyone who's in this just has higher star power than the previous years. In fact, we get an Omega Hangman team up, a reuniting of Omega and Hangman, the previous tag team champions. So that's awesome. They do some cool team up moves. Just all the chemistry between all the teams is much better here. Well, at least on one side of the match, and we'll get to that later. And playing into that is the storytelling that's happening between Claudio and Pac. Blood and Guts 2023 probably has the best storytelling out of any of the Blood and Guts to date, with the storytelling between Pac and Claudio and so many other threads throughout the match. Really enjoyed that aspect of this one. Nick from the Young Bucks enters the ring and he is on fire. This is one of the best like cleaning house segments out of any of the Blood and Guts. And one thing you're going to see a lot of in this match is glass. Moxley produces a bucket of glass and everyone is bumping into this glass like the entire time. The glass comes into play like a lot. It is much better than the previous year's glass. The only minus, everything I'm going to mention here is going to be a positive, a plus point. The only minus on this entire Blood and Guts is that Matt Jackson only almost kills Wheeler Yuta. Although no one gets thrown from the top of the cage, we do get a bed of nails. And not only do we get a bed of nails, but we get Kenny Omega thrown into the bed of nails twice. Jon Moxley takes a bump on them as well. That is absolutely nuts. Another thing that's absolutely nuts is Pac from the top of the cage stomping through one of the Young Bucks through a table. That's insane. It's an absolutely insane spot. The end of the match is maybe my favorite ending to all of the Blood and Guts matches. I'm really happy that it didn't end on top of the cage with the previous 2 years ending with everyone on top of the cage. I thought it was cool that this one happened in ring with lots of storytelling between Yuta and Moxley. Moxley's handcuffed to the ring and he can't save Yuta. Yuta is being hung by Hangman, and Moxley has to surrender in order to save Yuta's life. And you can just see it on his face, how disappointed he is in Yuta, but also realizing that he maybe cares about Yuta. He's like conflicted in his emotions. And really, this is kind of the death of the old school Steven Regal Blackpool Combat Club. It feels different from this point on. Something has changed. Something has changed with Moxley from this point on. Maybe it's clicked in him. People say that Moxley doesn't have a lot of character development, but if I was going to point to one bit of character development in Moxley, it would be this match was pivotal. And you can kind of see it from this point going forward. He's no longer like trying to beat up his own teammates. I think he's realized that he likes these guys, and there's more. They're more of a team after this going forward, is what I noticed. And this match is notable for that, and that gets a plus. I almost forgot. Another +1 from this match is this really interesting spot where Matt Jackson is on top of the cage and he opens the bag of thumbtacks, rains them down on the ring below, and then his teammates do a backdrop. They reverse the move. They were about to get like power bombed. They reverse that into a backdrop onto the tacks. The distraction was enough to give his teammates the advantage. I just thought that was a really cool moment and something that, you know, we've never seen before. And like I said, this one is just jam-packed full of stuff that you haven't seen before in a Blood and Guts, even though we've already seen 2 of them in AEW. Blood and Guts 2024. This is going to start off with Jack Perry and Darby Allin. That's just an awesome feeling combination right there, right? And that's going to play into the finish too. There's a lot of storytelling in this Blood and Guts, and that's why I'm going to start right off. We're going to give it a +1 for the storytelling. Darby Allin has a skateboard with thumbtacks on it and bounces off of Matt Jackson. Let's all say a prayer for Nick Jackson's nuts and the selling that he does on his nuts in this match. It's gonna get a point right now for when he like lands on the ladder and the selling of his nuts. It's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen. I gotta subtract a point because we got Max Caster with a microphone, but no rapping. The microphone does get used eventually, but I would have really liked to have seen Max Caster do a rap down the way to the ring, especially since it doesn't feel like Max got to do a lot. Bowens got some spots, but I don't really feel like Max got enough. Bowens had a great spot where he got some scissors and he tried to scissor Jack Perry's face in two. That's a plus. Nick and his nuts get another point. Nick Jackson takes a barbed wire leg drop to the nuts, and once again, the selling on Nick can really sell the shit out of his nuts. I tell you what, boys. Anyone complaining about no selling in AEW, look no further than Nick Jackson's nuts. Bowens with another spot. Bowens was taking punishment and dealing out damage, and I'm gonna give him a plus point for the barbed wire board sandwich spot on Bowens. All right, there's a whole mess of stuff around Swerve entering the match. Swerve does not just enter the match normally. He gets jumped by Hangman. He gets handcuffed to the ring. This is a plus. I really like this turn. I really like the use of the surprise entries this way. Hangman Adam Page didn't come out when he was supposed to. He waited in the back and he jumped Swerve. Now, I got to subtract a point. Although it did play out okay. It wasn't that bad. But Jeff Jarrett and Brandon Cutler come down, and it's just weird. And I get it. It's fine. But if I'm watching this exciting match and I'm totally involved in it, and I'm hanging on every second of it, and then at a certain point I'm just staring at it like, what the fuck is happening? That's a minus point. But look, I get it. I wouldn't even necessarily change it. Swerve enters hotter than anyone has ever entered one of these things in the history of time. And I love the flurry of moves that Swerve does. And once again, we get that innovative Swerve offense. I'm a big fan of Swerve this year, man. He has really been doing fantastic work in AEW. And even in a blood and guts match, he still gets his shit in. Staple guns! Holy shit! So the Young Bucks, when they came out, they had these briefcases, and in one of the briefcases, there's a shit ton of staple guns, and everybody just starts stapling the shit out of Swerve, but Swerve loves to be stapled, so it's not a problem. And then Swerve has a staple gun, and he is stapling everybody. He is a staple machine, and he staples Okada's bitchmaker. Swerve and Hangman face off. That's a huge plus. Bowens goes through 4 goddamn tables, and Bowens is dead, but Bowens, you're the fucking MVP of this Blood and Guts, and maybe the MVP of all Blood and Guts. I don't know if anyone has ever gotten more spots in one fucking match in one Blood and Guts match in AEW. Darby does a coffin drop off the top from inside of the top of the cage, and nobody climbs on top of the cage, and I'm giving this just 1 point, but I just wanted to throw that in there that, you know, in every single match someone's gone up on top of the cage, so it's kind of cool that they did one and nobody went up on the top of the cage this time. But Darby climbed on the inside of the cage and dropped down on Jack Perry, which was fucking sweet. And that brings us to the end of the match, and I hope I didn't miss anything. There was so much good stuff in here and very little bad stuff in here. And this brings us to the ending, which is really mixed. It's a plus and it's a minus, right? We sacrifice Jack Perry, and I think it would have been better, and this is just me as a fan, I don't know shit, but I think it would have been better if the match would have ended with the chair shot, the unprotected chair shot to Jack Perry's head. And there's a lot of online discourse around this. I assume it's a rigged chair and that he's not actually brain dead now, you know. Who knows? Jack Perry doesn't get knocked out by it. He basically, in effect, no-sells an unprotected chair shot to the head, which is, I'm sure, just pissing the internet off left and right. I don't mind that, but when we dump gasoline all over him, and then we don't set them on fire, it's kind of like the same effect we had last year where it was like, we're going to throw Yuta off the cage and kill him. Oh no, we're not. Well, you got us all worked up to see a man die, and then you don't deliver, and now we're all kind of bummed out, even though we didn't really want to see anyone. Nobody actually wanted to see Jack Perry set on fire, right? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments. But I think it would have been better if it would have been the chair shot and been like, we're going to fucking kill him with this chair, and then they give up, and then boom, they hit him with the chair anyways, and then he's knocked out, right? That would have, and then Jack Perry would have been sacrificed. Here, it just doesn't really feel like he was sacrificed. They set it all up. They were right fucking there. And then we didn't really cross the finish line. All we did was set up a match between Darby Allin and Jack Perry at All In, which I'm sure is fantastic, but just felt like kind of an unsatisfying ending to this match. But let me know what you think about this and everything else down in the comments below. Here's your chance. Lock in your scores. And now I'm going to do the big reveal where I show you what every single match got by my weird little point system that I developed for no fucking reason. Like I said, I'm a dipshit. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm sure you're much better at this. So make sure you put down your results down in the comments, and then you can check mine, and then we can argue about them for a few days. I'm into that. Keep digging. So we have a tie for the lowest amount of points for an AEW Blood and Guts match. And the tie is between the very first Blood and Guts in 2021 and the second Blood and Guts in 2022. And I gave them both 4 points. Now, what was interesting is that the original Blood and Guts, I remembered so little of it that I thought it was actually not as good as it actually was. It was actually much better than I remembered it being. And it was quite enjoyable to go back and watch that one. I think the biggest issues with the original Blood and Guts were that, it was the quarantine. It was the lockdown situation, the ending, of course, with Jericho and seeing all the cardboard and whatnot. And a lot of people here weren't like the best versions of themselves. This isn't the best version of MJF. This isn't the best version of even Santana and Ortiz. I think what we got in the second Blood and Guts was a more kind of violent version of them. So yeah, this had some drawbacks in that regard, but better than I remembered it being. Whereas the second Blood and Guts was about as good as I remembered it, or not as good as I remembered it. I think a lot of the problem here was that we had kind of a downgrade in star power on mainly the Jericho Appreciation Society. That stable, Jericho was working with a lot of guys who weren't really over with the audience as much as the Blackpool Combat Club. But an interesting match nonetheless. I give it a 4. Okay, for the runner-up. I don't know if you guys were able to keep track through all the crap I was saying in this video, but my second, I don't know if this is favorite. Like, the new Blood and Guts, the one that just happened in 2024, is so new for me. I might have to rewatch it a year from now, and it might change. But right now, the way I'm feeling is that last year's Blood and Guts is the runner-up with 9 points. This is a fantastic Blood and Guts match. Don't let me dissuade you from checking this one out. I thought it would be hard to beat this match. I'm very, very surprised that I enjoyed the newest one. Now, it could have just been that I was watching it for the first time, but it could also be that the newest Blood and Guts match, the one from this year, is just better. The only thing I would say is that last year, the finish was way better. The finish last year was like the best finish that we've ever had to a Blood and Guts. The emotion there between Jon Moxley and Yuta, you really can't top that. I mean, I'm sure you can, but they didn't do it this year, and that's the only problem. However, this year was so damn exciting. The amount of talent that's in the ring, the level these guys are operating at, it was just jam-packed with moments. It didn't slow down hardly ever. I think actually the slowest bit was at the very start between Jack Perry and Darby Allin, but they didn't even jump right into the cage. They're on the outside of the cage, and they're keeping things moving, and it's like they know they've done it 4 times, and they're just trying to add more. They're trying to not retread any ground that they've already done, and that's why I like that they didn't go up to the top of the cage. They cut through the cage. Swerve entered, like, not through the door. He got wire cutters and, like, cut his way through the cage, and they just try to make so many interesting moments in this that we haven't seen before, and I really think that's awesome. I think it's like harder. It's more impressive to me that they were showing me things that I hadn't seen in a blood and guts match at the 4th year mark. Like, they're still coming up with new things to do in there that we haven't seen in AEW, and really I haven't even seen in other companies. So I thought it was really, really cool. I'm not mad at the ending. I mean, I think it's fine. It just didn't have the emotional impact it could have had it been played out a little bit differently. I don't know. Like I said, I'm an idiot. I want to know what you think about all of this. This was a crazy fun video to make. You may have noticed that it's not a documentary video, right? I don't know if this actually took me any less time to make, but I guess maybe it felt less like work because I was watching a lot of wrestling to put it together. I don't know if I'm going to do anything quite as in-depth as this, reviewing 4-hour-long matches, because these things are each an hour long. Is still a little bit more effort than I really should be putting in until the channel grows in some regard. But I did have a good time putting it together. Let me know what you think, and and watch another video. There's a lot of videos on this channel. I'm always hoping that the video I put out is gonna get a few thousand views, and then when it gets a couple hundred views, I can tell you to go watch a video that you've missed, but if it's only got a couple hundred views, then everybody that's seen it has already seen it. And now I'm rambling, but what I'm saying, when I say that, I'm assuming that maybe this one has been the one and it's hit a few thousand views, and now I'm talking to a few thousand people and telling them, hey, there's a lot of videos on this channel. They're very good, so make sure you check them out. And grave diggers, keep digging.
He is the I and I am him, and I'm the undisputed trend, Matt Taven. And this dork behind the camera, some Melvin told me to say, grave diggers keep on digging. Whatever that means.
I am AEW wrestler and Ring of Honor tag champ, Mike Bennett. And remember, grave diggers keep digging, but not the monster truck. Even though my son really likes that monster truck, I kind of like Son of a Digger, and so I'm going off on a tangent about monster trucks because my son really loves monster truck, but we're talking about the YouTube channel, so make sure, grave diggers, keep on digging, baby.
So this is Mark doing one half private party, saying what up to the grave diggers, and doing your thing, bro.
Alright, like, subscribe, and watch another video, or be cursed. If you're cursed, that means the grave diggers will keep digging your graves, so you probably want to do it.